whenever we set up a project, we were on the set for the project. And we started to do it so many times, we would learn what that meant. We would go on the location scouts. We would do things that producers generally thought they were above doing.
You're listening to Screenwriters Need to Hear This with Michael Jamin. Hey everyone, welcome to Screenwriters Need to Hear This. This is Michael Jamin, and Phil is doing some more work today, but I got a special guest star, and he's a producer. He's going to answer a lot of you want to know how to become a producer. I don't even know what a producer is. We're going to find out, but I'm very happy to have Jim Serpico here. Listen to his credits, because hold on. Pull over if you're in your car. All right, I'm just going to mention some of your credits, Jim, and then I promise I'll give you a chance to talk, or not. So, executive producer of The Job, a bunch of Comedy Central roasts, Canterbury's Law, a bunch of Dennis Leary specials, Rescue Me, he executive produced, and if you want Sirens as well, Benders. You're also the showrunner and writer, which is the head writer of that, and executive producer of Maron, which is how I met him. And then Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, a bunch of other comedy specials. Jim's got a big specialty. His niche is comedy. And I gotta say, and I think I told you this, Jim, years ago. I know I did. So sometimes people say, like, how do I become a producer? Or because the producer is this vague catch-all term, and it can mean a manager could be a producer, a writer could be a producer. But when I think of producer, producers who do the job, who get their hands dirty, it's Jim Serpico and his partner Tom Saletti. And I'm sure I told you this, Jim. We had well, say hi so people know you're here.
Hey,
hey,
I'm
okay.
here. Thanks for having me.
I'm doing a lot of talking. But I want to kiss your butt for just a second, because I think it's important people know this. Years ago, my partner and I wrote a spec script, and we wanted to get a producer attached. We sent it out. We had a meeting with a producer who had a production deal, and this person was an ex-studio executive, and as part of their compensation, part of their package was they got a deal to be a production deal. So we go meet with them. I don't want to say who it was, and they're excited about the script, and they go, "Oh, the script's great. You know who would be the perfect star for this?" And they mentioned this actor, and we were like, "Yes, that he would be perfect for the star." And then this producer said to me the words that crushed me. The producer said, "Do you know how to reach them?" And I was just like, "But that's your job. Like, what do you think you're doing?" And the thing is, Jim, if it was you, this is what you would have said. You would have said, "All right, I'm going to go to this costume store. I'm going to rent a pizza delivery costume. I'm going to get a large pie, and I'm going to deliver it to them with the script inside," because that's what a producer does.
I appreciate that.
A producer's a hustler.
Well, some are not always required. But yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, and I could say a lot about all this. But that's what I would do. I like to think that I am very resourceful in an honorable way. I have done things like I forget who was running HBO at the time, but I was shopping a cookbook called the Mafia Cookbook with these recipes, and we wanted to do these short films tied around the recipes. And he was based in Los Angeles. It was Bob Cooper, actually. And I had this $300 basket made with Italian pastas and homemade sauce and mozzarella, copies of the cookbook and all this stuff. And I had it delivered to his home on the weekend. And I had never met him. And he called me on the weekend, and he goes, "I've never met you. I don't really know who you are, but I must say, this was one of the most unbelievable presentations I've ever seen."
Right.
And then the next time I talked to him, he passed. But at least I got the look. The look.
But even when we met on Maron, like, you were always very hands-on. Some producers will say, "Okay," and then they pass it off. They order someone else to do it. "This is what we need to do. Now you do it." You pick up the phone and you do it. Like, you're always very hands-on. Like, I will get this done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, for better or for worse, I had to figure out this job kind of on my own, and find mentors along the way that would show me. like
And who
what
were
to
they?
do as a producer.
And then what did they teach you?
Well, so going back, you got to understand, like I started representing comedians, which is a way into producing for a lot of people, I guess. But also that I didn't learn from anyone.
And how did you get into that then?
I was an assistant. Okay, this relates to what you were saying.
Yeah.
Right from the very, very beginning, I graduated college. I got a job at a music booking agency, and I was an assistant. You know, what other jobs? But getting an assistant job is one of the best things you can do if you want to break into show business. You know, whether you're an assistant at a management company, an agency, a writer's assistant, whatever. I believe in that, and I also believe in the philosophy. While you're there, you don't have to worry like this isn't the exact thing I want to do. The person I'm assisting doesn't have the job I want to have, so then I'm going to be miserable every day. No, instead you should still do the best job you can, because that person, as well as the others around, are going to really like you and root for you and help you in some way. But I was an assistant at a music booking agency that had Wilson Pickett, Bo Diddley, The Village People, Ronnie Spector, you know, these oldies groups. But they were credible people, and I said, I want to be a booking agent. Like who, you know, and I was vocal about it. It was a small enough company I could have those conversations with the owners. And they gave me 3 states to appease me and shut me up. They said, all right, you want to be a booking agent? We're giving you Bo Diddley and Wilson Pickett. You have North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Good luck.
3 worst.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was about 1990, 91. And I literally would go, and I went to the bookstore. I got this book on blues clubs, and I would call information. And in 1990, when you dialed information, you would get a local operator. Mm-hmm. And I literally would have conversations and say, I represent Bo Diddley. And they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, yeah, do you have any ideas on who I could call to try to book Bo Diddley? And I had no leads on where to book him. And I would call hotels, and I would call bars. And I came up with a list of people, and they were like, are you telling me for real you could get Bo Diddley here? And I'd be like, yeah, I could get Bo Diddley here. And I remember we got a booking for him, and my bosses were like, we got to get the 50% deposit wired, because I'd never heard of this place. Is it real? And we ended up booking a tour for Bo Diddley in those 3 states.
Wow.
And I had never met Bo at the time, and about 6 months later I met him, and he goes, you're the motherfucker that booked me in North Dakota, South Dakota in February? You know how fucking cold it is in February?
All right.
But he was joking, and he was cool about it, but it was me being resourceful.
Right.
And then my next step was booking comedians, not in those states, but in colleges. And I went to NACA conventions. And
wait, what is that? That's the college convention, right? What is it?
Yeah. I don't even remember. It's like I don't even remember what it's something college association. It's like all the people who run student activities at the colleges around the country. There's one big national convention where everyone, all the big players in college go, and then they break off into these regional conventions. So the first one I ever went to was the big one, and I was 22. I was barely older than the college kids, and I met these agents who had been in the business. They were 5 years older than me, and they were, like, to me, they were big shots because they worked at places like William Morris and APA. Mm-hmm. But really, within the company, they were like, it wasn't the most prestigious thing to be known for as an agent. Is, all right, you're going to handle these college kids, right? But to me, they were big agents at big agencies, and they were selling people like Adam Sandler, whatever. Anyone who's anyone as a stand-up comedian would want college gigs because they would pay $5,000 to $50,000 a gig. So I became friends with some of the agents who were there. We would hang out. We would have a couple beers. I actually threw a party in my hotel room for the student buyers, and I had the agents there, and I filled up my bathtub with beer, and I was networking with people, and because they had fun, they would come down to my booth and book these comedians and magicians that I was selling for colleges. And those agents specifically at APA, said, we are not going to these other 12 conventions. You are. Why don't you handle our comedians for us and be a middle agent, and your company will get 10%, our company will get 10%. So that's what I did. And one of those clients was Adam Sandler. And I started booking Adam on college shows around the tri-state area. And then I would drive Adam to the gigs that I booked. And that's when I got hooked on comedy and realizing that comedy and representing and working with comedians was a business. Because I had this personal relationship with the guy who was going on stage that night, and he seemed to appreciate the fact that I was getting him these gigs for over $20,000 a night. Right. And he would then
Is this before Saturday Night Live?
This was right during it.
Okay.
During it. But I remember he had Chris Farley call me from the set of Saturday Night Live, trying to convince me to take him on as a client to book him at colleges. And then I went into full-on comedy representation at a small management company based on that.
Why would you need to be convinced of that, though? Like, what did you say, yes or no?
I did, but it never ended up working out. I think he was just like, you know who I am. I don't know if you know who I am. I do this guy, the Bears. And he starts doing the impression of the thing he's doing. And at the time, I was also at a photo shoot with someone who became a client and ultimately my partner, Dennis Leary. That's when that call happened.
Right.
Yeah, and then Dennis and I bonded, and I went on the road with Dennis as a tour manager for 6 months with him and his band, and we became close. He started to take off. He had an opportunity based on his heat to start a production company.
Right.
He saw something in me to ask me to do it and run it for him. I had no experience.
Yeah, you had no experience in that. Yeah.
I think he just trusted me, and none of us really knew what it was or what it meant.
Right.
He never had a tremendous trust in the typical Hollywood person, so I think he felt better with kind of like a young person who we believed would be honorable, not rob him, and look out
for his business. Yeah.
And while he was still surrounded by these other experts, because at that point, he had agents at the big agencies.
But were you intimidated when you were in those early meetings with agents and writers and producers, and you're brand new?
Yes and no. I think there's certain people that get off on trying to control the room and make people like me feel intimidated. And it's weird because on one level I'm a very quiet, shy person, but there's another part of me that's very confident. And like I could read the room, and I could be tough when I have to be tough. And I don't know, I just kind of fit in. And the other thing that happened was a pivotal moment in my career was Dennis did a movie, and we got to see the movie before it came out. It was me, his agent, and somebody else. And
at this point, you're working in the capacity of you're running his production company. Right,
but also handling all his business. So I was his de facto manager.
Okay.
But my role was officially, partner in the production company.
Right.
And I saw the movie and I said, this movie is not good. This is going to be a problem. And the agent said he doesn't know what he's talking about and said a lot of good things.
Right.
And the movie came out and did not do well.
Right.
And there was forever a bond and trust. And I didn't do it for that reason. I was just telling the truth of what I felt about the movie. And I wasn't trained. By the way, I have no training in writing, or I didn't go to school for movie and film production or development. Right. I went to school for music.
But when you said it was no good, like what were you hoping to happen from that?
Well, you got to immediately get into defensive mode and figure out what our stance is going to be. How much press are we going to do?
Oh, okay.
What are we going to say to people? Your name's all over this.
Well, but he didn't write it. He was just starring in it.
He did write it.
No. And you had the balls to tell him it was no good?
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't you want that? If seriously.
Well, at the script stage, but I don't. At that point, what are you going to do other than, I guess, recut it? I mean, you can't reshoot it.
Oh no, there was not. No, the movie was coming out, man. There was nothing. Yeah. But you do have to. There's a whole nother part of this when you're representing talent. Is like, what is our position when they're asking us? The movie studios or whoever's putting up the money is going to ask the talent to promote the shit out of the project, right? Because that's all they have. It's very hard to get free press unless it's amazing. So they're going to push and push and push. Yeah. You have to be smart and pick your shots. Like, if you know it's a dog, you can't say yes to all that stuff.
But you're you're basically asking him to distance himself from his own project.
Correct.
But is there any way to do that? If you, I mean, like,
people
how can
do
you
it
go
all the
and
time?
say, I had nothing to do with this. I don't know what happened.
No, you don't. You just don't do interviews. Certain ones.
Okay.
You know?
And then you just lick your wounds and then figure out your next plan.
I mean, yeah. And long story short, our next plan was to go into the TV business.
Right. And then what? So what show came after that? What show came next?
So the first. All right. I mean, the truth is, we took a deal to develop television early on without the intention of ever developing television.
Right. Why? It was the money.
We had the rent paid. We had salaries paid. We would buy time to develop new movies.
Okay, so you were going to put it towards movies, but not TV. That's all.
But the deal was for television.
But why? So what was your plan then? If you weren't going to do what did he want to concentrate on? Movies and guest stars or something?
See what happens. We'll buy in 2 years. We'll see what happens.
Right.
You know, and at that point, the deal was with DreamWorks, and Jeffrey Katzenberg was involved, and we flew to LA to meet Jeffrey, and it was Dan McDermott, Justin Falvey, Dalrymple Frank at the time. Yep. These are all big executives.
Yeah.
Daryl and Justin still run DreamWorks Television today.
Yep.
They were some of my first friends in the business. And we had some conversations. Dennis had done a movie, a police movie, where he was, I don't know, like the third lead or something. And he got really close with one of the police techs. And always thought it would be a cool idea for a movie or TV show. We had that conversation with Katzenberg, and the next thing, you know, he somehow hooks us up with Peter Tolan.
Yeah.
And once Peter Tolan's involved, we're like, well, wait a second, maybe TV. Let's see what this is about.
He's a big shot writer. He's a great writer, Peter Tolan.
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm skipping around a little bit, but because you guys, I should mention, you're New York based, as well as that. All you guys are New York based. Is that now? Do you find that, Hollywood is in Hollywood? What's that like for you?
Oh, me?
You have to
personally, I love it. I love leading a regular non-Hollywood life and popping in. And when I say pop in, I dedicated a lot of my life to knowing as many players in Hollywood or more than the people who live in Hollywood did. So,
and how'd you do that?
Let's go back one second. You asked me who my mentors were.
Yeah.
Before we really did that TV show, we set up a couple of independent movies. There was a guy named Bobby Newmeyer who we were partnering on a project that never ended up happening, but he became a really good friend of mine. He produced the first hit independent movie, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. He, for some reason, every time he came to New York, which was every 3 months, he and I would go out for lunch or dinner for years. And he would teach me a lot of stuff. And if I ever had a question in the business, he would teach me.
Give me an example of what he might teach you.
Going forward, line producers are amazing. Do you need to give away 50% of your business to have one as a partner? No.
To have a line producer? Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
Right, no. Right. Things like, you love this book. Here's what you do. You go to this person at this agency or these several people to try to find a writer that's really meaningful. But right. I'm 25 years old. How could I sell a book? That doesn't matter. As long as you have something they want, you have a good writer. So the other thing that happened was around the time of the the movie I was talking about not doing so well, we rejiggered the team around Dennis professionally. And Dennis, I mean, this is the luck part, but it's also the fact that I was resourceful enough and maybe naive enough and ballsy enough. I went to L.A. myself and hired a new agency team for Dennis without him being there, and a new lawyer.
Was he aware of this, that you're doing this?
He asked me to.
Oh, okay, all right.
But I became the point guy now because they were like, Jim brought us in. We're working here for Dennis. It's Dennis and Jim, but I was a very important part of the team now.
Right.
I wasn't just some, like at the other place, I was just some assistant peon. Now I was the guy who hired them to be on the team, and they would get me any meeting, whether it was with Dennis for him to be in or not. And I remember within a year and a half of working at this production company with no experience, I sold at least 1 or 2 projects to Mike DeLuca that were based on books. Right. Because the agency and the specific agents at that agency really were trying to help me build my business.
Right. Interesting.
And at that point, I was like, I could sell anything. I wasn't. I know it sounds cocky. What I really mean is like I have done it already. So why do? I'm sure I could keep doing this, and I would sell projects.
But isn't there an element, because there's there's so much to being a producer. Some of it is selling, and some of it is actually making and doing and being on set, and like there's more than
Well, that's the other thing, and because I didn't learn. So Bobby Newmeyer was a hands-on producer. He did not represent talent, and the beauty of learning from a guy like that was, he was teaching me how to produce from the ground up and get the films sold and made, because that's what he did without just leveraging talent. So many producers come up through the agencies and the mailrooms. And by the way, I'm not shitting on that way of coming up or producing. I do think those people deserve producing credits. But whenever we set up a project, we were on the set for the project. And we started to do it so many times, we would learn what that meant. We would go on the location scouts. We would do things that producers generally thought they were above doing. A lot of producers. Like Bobby Newmeyer would go on the location scouts because he was an independent filmmaker and producer. We would go on the location scouts, and by going on the location scouts and paying attention and just being so involved, first of all, we were able to learn every aspect of filmmaking. It was our film school. Like the DP would talk about why this room's great, why the light's going to look amazing, or what we need to do to light it to make it look like the way we want, why this apartment is not configured correctly, while this room is amazing, there's nowhere to stage all the equipment. We can't shoot here. It's like everything.
Yep. I remember you doing that when we were scouting Maron. And I was just watching you because you were. That's exactly what you were saying. Was like, this is not. Yeah, where do we put Video Village here? Where do we?
Right.
It's too close to the street. We're gonna get noise. I mean, you were dinging places until we found the right place.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's just what I learned by producing the way I figured out how to produce. And I didn't have a lot of these managers that work at management companies with. There's a lot of pressure to earn. And they only earn based on the commissions their clients are bringing in. And they're so busy doing that that it's not possible for them to leave the office for 6 hours or 4 hours a day. I mean, like I moved to Los Angeles for 3 months at a time for 3 years. I didn't do the 4th season in person, but like I would be hands-on,
very hands-on,
and have enough time to try to continue to develop my other projects and nurture my relationships. And that's another part of it. And I don't know if you want me to keep rambling.
No, I think this is stuff I don't even know. So it's not just my audience, it's me. So please go on.
So the other thing that I did when I put together that team for Dennis, and then we had the shows on the air, that one of them was very successful. and the deal was the project Rescue Me was financed by Sony Pictures Television.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up having a deal with Sony to develop more television.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, after the first couple seasons of Rescue Me, I really concentrated on building out the rest of the business. And I opened an office in Los Angeles for us. And I would go to LA a week a month,
Mm-hmm.
every month. And I would take meetings with agents, managers, writers, and certain talent. And I made sure that over the course of 10 years, I had a personal relationship with anyone that could possibly buy from us.
Right. Right.
I also, when we had shows on the air, I did a lot of work with the people at the studios and the networks in all different departments. So, like my guest, I have this podcast now. It's called Bread for the People, and I'm a bread maker, but I also obviously still produce television, and I have people from the entertainment field on the podcast, and I'm on the podcast next week is the guy who is a market analysis research guru who tests television shows.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would talk to these people and I would learn from them. Especially in particular that show, and we talk about it on this coming episode, the testing of the original pilot informed a reshoot that we had to do to the end
Mm-hmm.
of that pilot. And, that reshoot helped make it become successful. But I always enjoyed meeting people in the business who worked in all different fields and learning from them, and I really dedicated my life to it. And in some ways I would say, and I still do this, like I work a lot. I try to take some time for myself, but I work many hours a day to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work from 7 a.m. till 11 at night.
Hey.
I'll schedule social things and I'll put that in my day. But I always did that, and I always was willing to travel
Right.
for the job and spend a lot of time away from my family, but I would do everything I can to be back on the weekends.
Right. Interesting. So yeah, you made your sacrifices. I want to talk to you about Maron, because that show came about, it was a real low budget show, and it came about in an interesting way. So tell us about the beginning of that. Even before me and Seaver got involved.
So I had known this manager named Olivia Wingate
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. We didn't know each other too well, actually. I was listening to Maron's podcast, and I believe it was around episode 14, I'm guessing, that he had Judd Apatow on, and around the same time he had Louis C.K. on.
Wow,
and
this was really right in the beginning then.
This was the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by the podcast, and I was like, I wonder if, in my mind, it was like a Larry Sanders type of show around Marc Maron doing this podcast. And that's all it was, right? I wasn't even writing at the time. And I spoke to Olivia, and she was very warm and welcoming. You have a lot of managers out there, especially today. It's harder than ever. These gatekeepers that do not want an outside guy, especially like me, who also manages talent.
Mm-hmm. Because she thought you might poach?
She didn't, but they don't even give me the opportunity. Some do. You and I just had an experience where
mm-hmm.
I reached out to a manager of another piece of talent, and he was also very warm and open.
Right.
But a lot of the guys at the big places won't have that conversation. But she was cool, and then she set a meeting with herself and Mark and me in New York, and we worked on developing an idea for a good year with a writer-director that had a couple of cool credits, but it never worked out.
In the sense that you weren't happy with the script, you mean?
I don't even know if it went to script. It definitely went to some kind of outline.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely something, but I don't know that there was a script. And then, from the management company I had a manager representing writers that had a client named Duncan Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to give him a shot at meeting with Mark and writing the original pilot script.
And Duncan was basically a no one. He didn't even have any credits at that point, right?
Duncan was a no one.
Yeah.
And the script came out, I thought, pretty great.
Yeah.
And I had a deal with Fox Television Studios at the time and went to Fox and said, listen, this guy, Mark Maron, is blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
We have this really good script with a concept where we could bring in guest actors every week. I think we could produce this at a low budget every week. Here's what I want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of paying script money, because pilot script money, right, is a minimum of $75,000.
Okay.
I said, give me $30,000 to go out and shoot something. That's it. That's what you're investing. And for these companies, that's nothing.
Hey, it's Michael Jamin. If you like my videos and you want me to email them to you for free, join my watch list. Every Friday, I send out my top 3 videos. These are for writers, actors, creative types. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. I'm not going to spam you, and it's absolutely free. Just go to michaeljamin.com/watchlist. And did Duncan get? So Duncan didn't get any script money, or did he get the difference?
I don't know.
Don't want to say.
I honestly don't think Duncan got money at the time, but Duncan had a chance to get a short film made. Like we kind of called it a short film.
It was like a presentation. It was kind of like I seem to remember it was like maybe 15 minutes or something. You shot of the original.
It was at least 15 minutes, which by the way, a full episode would be 21 minutes.
Right. So it wasn't shorter. Yeah.
It wasn't that much shorter.
Yeah.
And I had these guys from New York that did me a favor. They came out. I mean, we did this whole thing that looked like a television show for $30,000.
And that's amazing.
And
so who is getting paid? I mean, there's production costs. Like, I don't know how you do it for $30,000. You rent a place, or did you get the place for free? Like, you must have just paid people in pizza, because there's certain fixed costs that you have to pay the camera and stuff like that.
I don't think we had to pay the camera. I think the guys flew out with their cameras. I got these guys in New York who were commercial, filmmakers that wanted to get into scripted, had a line producer that wanted to get into scripted, and a lot of people did favors. And it's back to the resourceful thing, right?
Right.
It's going out and thinking outside the box.
For sure.
My favorite quote of there was a writer, Don Oldtimer. What the hell was his name? It'll come to me, but you definitely know this guy. Okay. Well-known comedy writer. Right. But he said, his quote was, when they zig, we zag.
Right.
He never wanted to do it the way everyone else was doing it. And that's kind of my thing. It's like, I'm going to make stuff happen. Like, I'm going to make it happen. And we're going to go out and figure out how to shoot it. Do I know how? No. But we're going to figure it out. I know that. And we did,
that is unusual. Because usually, just so people were listening, you would write, someone would get paid to write the script. They'd read the script, and then they'd pass on it. That's how it usually goes. But so you shot it thinking that it would help get it picked up, which is unusual too, because it doesn't necessarily help, but it did.
It doesn't necessarily help usually because it's awful. You know, everyone thinks they're going to go out and shoot a good one, including me. But, we took out the tape. We did screenings. We went around to the networks. We had meetings. And off that tape, we got an order to series. And then we started meeting showrunners.
Right.
That's where we met you guys.
Right.
And we reshot the pilot and rewrote the pilot.
Right. Did we rewrite the pilot?
I think so. Yeah.
So you met with a bunch of, because I remember, I think we met with you years earlier. I'm pretty sure we did, before Maron. And then you met with showrunners, and I remember meeting Mark. Seaver and I met Mark at a diner, and I think I don't even think Olivia was there. It was at a diner on Sunset Boulevard for breakfast, and Mark ordered steak and eggs. I was like, who has steak and eggs?
That should have been the sign.
And then we got that, and that was a great gig for us. I mean, that really was a really good 4 years. But yeah, super low budget, but it was a great experience. Yeah,
I loved it. Yeah. I loved it. It was my first thing that I ever shot in Los Angeles. It was hard to leave New York for so long, but it was just something like thrilling about it.
Yeah.
And we were really breaking new ground, I think. Like we really shot it for a quarter of the budget of most shows.
Mm-hmm.
Through Mark and his podcasting, we were able to get the guests that actually did the podcast, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah. He called in favors, but it was it was an interesting job. It was wonderful.
The other thing we did was on that presentation was we took a shot with a director that was not a television director. He was a filmmaker who won the Academy Award for Best Short Film, and it was Luke Matheny.
Right. So he directed the pilot, right?
Right, and that's how Luke got so involved. You know, we were loyal to everyone who was involved in the beginning because that was the promise, right? We're going to do this. We're going to get it picked up.
Mm-hmm.
And when it does, this is your way into television.
Yeah, and it was. He directed a bunch of episodes. He was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's doing really well right now.
He is.
And he's a really talented director.
Yeah. And you actually wound up directing some episodes too on Maron.
I did. I'm very grateful to you guys and to Mark for the opportunity to do that. You know, I was doing it. I started this business in my early 20s, and you're standing around the sets, and you start to learn the things.
Right.
You know, and you want to continue to evolve.
Right.
So it was different and scary, but it was cool. And then I went on to direct Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. And some of the Benter stuff.
I remember when you were directing, you bought a binder, right? A special binder, zipped, and you got to get a binder. So I went out and bought a binder for when we were. I got the same exact one.
I had a very specific way to direct, and I know I came up with people who did that, right? So I learned from them, and it was very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a skill set that I still have and bring to the things I do now. I am not currently in the pool to direct episodic television. I think the next shot I'll have is probably something I create.
Yeah, well, and let's talk about that because you and your partner Tom created Benders. So and that was your first time. Was that your first real writing? Did you have much writing experience?
We had some episodic credits.
Uh-huh.
Shortly before that, and it came up through a phone call with one of the executives at IFC. I don't know if we wrote it on spec first or if we found an area that they liked and then they ordered the script. I think that's what happened.
Right.
I think we found an area that they liked.
And so that was you guys running, and you had a small writing room, right? Or no?
We actually did that one also unorthodox, and we freelanced to 2 or 3 writers.
Uh-huh.
So we would write outlines and ideas, and we would write some of the episodes, and they would write some of the episodes that we assigned to them.
Well, that's interesting. Why did you want to do it that way?
It's the same thing as the show that we did, Maron. Like, we just didn't have the money.
Uh-huh.
Writing staffs cost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're not necessarily required to have a writing staff. You are required to farm out episodes, at least 2 a season.
Right.
So we just did it the bare minimum.
Right.
And you have more experience on that than me. I've never worked on a writing staff. I don't know how. I know that in sitcom world it's very effective and it's almost necessary.
Right.
I never found in the dramas I did that it was helpful, and I felt it was inconsistent, and that ultimately the big showrunners that I worked with had to end up rewriting everything.
That happens if you don't have the right staff, for sure. Yeah. Interesting. And then, do you? So what did you think of it? Did you like the whole writing, that whole process for you?
Oh yeah. I loved it.
If you were going to do if you had to choose between writing, producing, directing, that's it. Which would you want to put your energy into?
It would not be directing. I could weed that out by process of elimination.
Why is that? It's stressful. People don't realize how stressful it is, but
it's stressful. And to what end? In television, it's like, you're really executing the creator's vision.
Right.
And in television, the creator is the person, whose vision it is.
Right.
So I would say it would be the writing, to be honest. But I also love the producing.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like it's all been a gift, and many people only get so many shots. Like, there's so many writers, there's so many producers that have had one show on television and never had anything again.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a pretty decent career, and I get those other shots coming up. I'll be very thankful for whatever they are.
Right.
So, but yeah, Tom and I have one series we're about to pitch, hopefully within 3 weeks. We're very excited, and
A comedy or
the
drama?
dream is it's a comedy. The dream is that gets sold, and we get a chance to write the script,
Right.
and we get a chance to have health insurance.
That's a big deal. Wait, do you get? You must be in the you're in the Producers Guild as well, right?
I'm in the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, and the Bakers Guild. I am not in the Producers Guild. The
Why
Producers
not?
Guild has no benefits. It's
Oh,
not
really?
the same.
Really? They don't have
Yeah.
benefits?
No, I think you get a discount on car rentals.
Well, that's
But
nice.
there's nothing else.
Interesting. I didn't know that. And so then, all right. So that's what's on tap for you guys now. And so, but you still, do you still manage people at all, or what, or no?
I do. I
And
manage
mostly
a couple of people.
Comedians.
I can manage yeah. It would always be comedians only. I manage less people than I did. I'm just putting my time and energy into the people I represent, as well as the creative projects we have, and
Right.
this other business that I started. But you asked something earlier about types of producers,
Right.
right? And there are it's hard to define what a producer is, because the truth is there's like 50 types of producer.
Right.
You have at the basic level, you have a creative producer who might own a book or property or some intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's always what I was and I am. And even if it's not intellectual property per se, I went out, talked to Mark Maron, and convinced him to do television, and we came up with an idea together that was at least the seed. That was the intellectual property.
Right.
And then in my role, I see it through from inception all the way to the end. And I'm also involved in the ad campaigns. When the network has, the pitch to what's going to be on the poster, they run it through the executive producers.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. So I'm that kind of person, but I am never hired by anyone. I have to generate, or I don't. Right. It's eat what you kill.
Yeah.
So I have to self-generate. I get a project like that going, I need a line producer who's only going to work on that project while it goes.
And then why don't you tell everybody what a line producer does?
Well, before that, one of the reasons a line producer does the nuts and bolts of overseeing the way it's scheduled out to shoot, which all has to do with the money.
Mm-hmm.
Hires the crew.
Mm-hmm.
The crew answers to him or her and their team. And again, they work specifically on that show, where I can have one project or 5 projects going at one time.
Right.
And then I would need 5 line producers to work.
Right.
And then under them, they have producers that work on just certain things.
Right.
Production managers.
Right.
Who really are the day in and day out of having the department heads report to them.
Right.
And then there's writing producers, which you could speak better to than me, but on television, there's a million producers.
Yeah.
Most of those producers are writers.
Right.
At some level on the staff. There's a hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
There's, the more seasoned you are, generally the higher credit you have based on precedent. The more valuable you are or have made yourself, they need you. And also associated with those production credits is the amount of money you make.
Right.
That's the other secret. It's like when you're looking at those credits, the people with the higher production credits are making more money than the people with lower production credits.
Except on Maron, everyone was equal.
Yeah, Maron. No one made a ton of money on Maron.
Money on it. Right.
Which I think is ultimately why it ended earlier than it could have. Like, the show was performing the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mark didn't want to. He felt we took the show as creatively as far as we could. I mean, and then I remember saying to him, he's like, "What do we do? We've done everything from our life." And I was like, Mark, we're writers. We can come up with stuff. And he was like, "What do you mean?" And so that's it. He was surprised.
It's interesting. I mean, that is probably true, and that was a conversation you guys had. Mm-hmm. My conversation was more like, we reran these on Netflix, and it got triple the amount of viewers, or not, way more than triple, actually. Like, why am I doing this show originally for this type of network right now? I think I'd be better off in my career to move on. That's how I saw it.
There was that, and I always disagreed on that. I was like, but the fact that we get paid less, the budget is lower, means we get to do what we want creatively, and I like that part. I like to get it because IFC was a good partner. They really let us do, as long as we were on budget, they let us do what we wanted to do, which is not always the case.
I agree with that, but I agree with that. But he's done pretty well since he left.
I think he probably did okay. Yeah, he made the right the right call.
I think it's a personal decision for each person. Like, I would. Did Mark think they were great partners? I don't know what his answer really would be. He didn't really have any context.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not sure if Mark thinks anyone's a great partner.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So, the other producers are the people who leverage their way in. What they have is the control of the talent.
Right.
There are certain management companies that are just famous for that. Mm-hmm. There was a wave in Hollywood where they were trying to cut it down, but they haven't cut that shit down.
No. Right. No, agents were trying to get on it. That's basically what happened. They tried to get on it. And looks like that's over.
Yeah.
But interesting. And
so
go on. Yeah, I didn't.
No, I don't know. I don't know what you want to cover.
No, but, we've talked about plenty, but I don't know. What advice would you have for someone who's trying to get in? I mean, you kind of stated, basically started as an assistant, but because I kind of said something the other day, and maybe I was talking out of my butt, but someone asked me, how do I become a producer? I go, producer is one of the most creative jobs on set because, basically a writer comes up with an idea and hands and says, can we make this happen? And the producer says a good producer say, all right, I'll figure out a way to make it happen. I don't, and then I don't want to know how. Don't tell me how you're going to do it. Just make it happen. And so if you're asking, how do I become a producer? You're missing the point. You just do it. That's you invent it. You find a writer to team up with. You find a project and you just make it happen on whatever money you can come up with. If it's $30,000, you could have done it for less. You could have done it on an iPhone if you had to,
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. And in some ways, I'm glad I kind of came up through trying to generate independent film, because that's exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. But, it also depends on what kind of producer. When someone says, I want to become a producer, how do I become a producer? Do they really know all these types of producers there are?
No.
And I'm living through this now, right? My son graduated school out in L.A., and he's working in the business. He doesn't really know for sure what he wants to do, and I didn't either.
Right.
So I think that's, for me, I think it might be too narrow to say I want to be a producer. I think it's cool to be open-minded and say maybe I'll be a producer. Mm-hmm. But I think, to me, the best advice is get in the business and work really hard and become recognized and find mentors.
Right.
And find a path that may or may not be a producer. Like, if I didn't have all those steps that added up to where I am now, I probably would have had some other steps that added up to something, if that makes sense. But I probably wouldn't have been a producer.
Oh, really? What about...
I didn't know I wanted to be one, right? So, like, I got a job in music and worked hard enough to book a tour, which led me to people who wanted me to book comedians, which led me to comedians wanting me to represent them, which led me to comedians wanting me to shepherd their material.
But what about developing for the comedians that you work with now? I mean, what creating shows.
Yeah, but I have that. I have the history and the experience to be able to do that.
Right. Right.
That the other way to do it is the most common way to do it is leverage your way in. Get a comedian, represent a comedian, work at a management company where the comedian's young and ultimately 6, 7, 10 years later become really important.
Mm-hmm.
Attach yourself to that person and you produce with them.
Right. Right. And that's very common, right?
It's more common, but you're probably not going to have the freedom to leave the office and actually produce.
Oh, you think? Really? Well, I guess it depends how many clients they have and how much. It's like you're saying. I would think they want you to protect them.
Well, the problem with management is it's a 10% business.
Right.
So to make a real living, how much money is your guys or girls making? How much are they making? And that's what the pressure is. Like these managers at these Brillstein Grays they have to have a book of business of $2 to $5 to $10 million. Right. So they're in the office.
Yeah. And then what exactly? All right. So what would a manager, since you know more about that area than I do, what exactly are they doing for their clients? These managers.
They're putting pieces together. They are moving. They're taking stuff in. They're calling. They're reading the coverage, and they're calling up somebody at a studio and saying this script is amazing. They never read the script, and they're selling it. They're selling shoes. Mm-hmm. They happen to be in the form of a script, and they're getting people, and they're putting people together. They're moving. They're having lunches. It's all the stuff I did, except they have they're doing so much of it that they can't really do anything except put pieces together.
Right. And they just hand it off to the next person, hand it off to the writer or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So interesting.
I mean, there might be people listening to this that completely disagree with me. And listen, there are plenty of... Judd Apatow was a guy who could do everything, right? He's a writer. I mean, I wish I was Judd Apatow to be like he does it all. He really produces those movies. Mm-hmm. He knows how to sell. He knows how to do everything, right? So there are those people, but they're the exception.
Yeah, I think so too. Right. It's a little different because once you create that big hit, your next show is much easier to sell.
Yeah.
Much easier. So interesting. It's interesting to hear your point of view.
Like for me, I'm still, like people could say about me whatever they want. Like I'm 54 years old. I've been doing this for a long time. I no longer run that production company, but I could still get in the door.
Right.
Everywhere. Right. So I have that shot. So now they don't buy as favors really.
Mm-hmm. Not anymore. Were they doing it in the beginning?
It was easier for people
right.
to buy, favors and take shots. But now they're really, are they programming it? Is it good? So we can at least get in the door and give it our shot. And we work really hard to present something that is worthy of being bought. And once it's bought, we're in the game, right?
But do you think it's different now? Do you think it's a little different now on streamers selling your shows? Like, as opposed to network and cable?
No. Not at all. It's just more competition. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more players. There's a lot more pressure to take pitches from a diverse group of people, whether or not everyone has experience, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot less money because there have been so many mergers, and these companies have all kind of combined. They mm-hmm. don't spend the development money. Like the rule used to be they buy 100 scripts in network television right. to make 7 to 8 pilots, to put anywhere from 2 to 8 pilots into production and 4 series on the air.
Yeah, and 2 of them have already been canceled. I mean, but you're not exaggerating. That's exactly what it was.
No, these are the real numbers.
Right.
Now, there's no way they buy more than 30 scripts.
You're talking about networks or who? Are they big networks or who?
Yeah. Well, anyone. There's no way. FX is not buying.
But I'm thinking. Like
I'd be surprised.
CBS,
I don't think CBS is buying more than 30 scripts.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's very hard. Yeah.
So everyone's like, "Oh, there's so many places to sell to." There's 350 million people in this country. 300 directors that make a full-time living directing television.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why, this whole thing about being open-minded and just doing the best job you can and figure out the path as you go, I think is very important, because the odds are against anybody at any age, unless you're a naturally gifted singer at 6 years old saying, this is what I want to do. Your life is probably going to change and take a turn. You're going to end up doing something else, and that's okay.
Right.
And it could be better than you ever imagined,
Are you talking about in or out of the business, you mean?
It doesn't matter. I mean, I think if you want to get into the business, I think that's that's what you're saying. I want to get in show business. I want to get in television.
Right.
I don't necessarily think, I know that the people listening to this are writers. They want to write. And the great thing about writing, you could always write, just like I did.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote on the side while I was running the production company. And, yeah, I was in a position. But I had to overcome, like, the not step over that line, because people didn't want to look at us as writers.
Right.
We weren't, like, people who we represented didn't want us to succeed as writers.
Well, they didn't want to help you because it was an easier hill to climb as a producer, because that's where people know you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking about agents and talent.
Well, this has been a very, very illuminating discussion. It's very sober. But okay, I want to thank you.
Let me say one thing
Please.
to the writers.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me say, you gotta write. You gotta write every day. You gotta read every day. I've had the benefit of being able to read scripts for 30 years, which helped me become a better writer. Am I the best writer? No. There is another path that I haven't talked about as much, and I'm sure you probably can better at another time with your listeners. Like, if you go to school or you write at an early age or whatever age, you could get in as a writer. And your writing just has to be so exceptional, and you have to understand that no one cares about your ideas, because they all have ideas. So you need something that they can't get, which may be getting the rights to some really important article or interesting article. So even if your script is a B and not an A, the concept is so great that's sellable.
The property.
And if someone's going to rewrite it, great.
And that's,
take the credit.
You're saying something like that, which I say over and over again, right? I mean, and so when you're reading scripts, how many pages in before you give up on it?
Not many.
Yeah.
I hate reading scripts. Right. They're so bad.
They're so bad. Right. And you're reading scripts from, these are professional caliber, at least scripts that came from agents and managers. They've already been vetted to some degree, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So, and even if they're not hooking you, you're just going to toss it. And so
100%.
Yeah. And so many people think.
But there's nothing better. There's nothing better than sitting down with a script that hooks you, and you actually read it. And you know what? People are going to give me shit, you don't read the thing. I spent so much time.
No.
I've got fucking 100 scripts a weekend to read. I'm not going to fucking read them all.
But this is exactly what I say. And I also say, if you're watching a TV show, you're going to say, well, it's going to get good around the 40-minute mark. No, I'll just click. I'll find something else. I mean, the viewers the same way. Like, there's too much choices. I don't have to suffer through it. And if it's going to get good on page 50, well, it should have been good on page 2. Sorry.
Yeah. But if I could, like, and it's also personal. If I love the script, even if it's hard to sell, I'm going to try to sell it.
Right.
Like, I'm okay if not everyone's going to love it.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it fits something that I would watch. Because that's the other thing I've always done. Would I watch it?
Right.
I'm not just trying to develop something I could sell.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's so funny.
Why are you laughing?
Because I say all this, and sometimes I think, and sometimes people are like, man, this guy's spitting truth. And it's like, yeah, but I'm not making it up. It's just like, this is how it is. It's like, I think there's a misunderstanding of the reality of what show business is like. It's like, and
it's a hard business, man. I'll end it with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to. You could go get a show. Maybe you could make a script deal. Mm-hmm. Can you make a 40-year career out of it? I don't know.
It's getting harder. It's getting harder for sure. It's getting harder. Yeah. Yep. On that note, Jim Serpico, thank you so much for doing this. This is a great talk. I knew it would be, but I want to remind everybody, go check out your podcast, Bread for the People. It's on every podcast platform, right?
Every podcast platform. The Steve LeBlanc episode relates to television and data and testing, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think people get a kick out of it.
Is there social media people should be following you too, or what?
Yeah. On Facebook, we are Bread for the People Pod on Facebook, and then on Instagram, at Jim Serpico.
Go follow this guy. This guy's spitting truth. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this. This was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. Until next week. Hey, it's Michael. One more thing. Come see me perform. I'm going to be in Boston area, actually Amesbury, Massachusetts, on November 12th and 13th at the Actor Studio, performing my show, A Paper Orchestra. And then I'm going to be back in Los Angeles on December 10th and 11th, again at the Moving Arts Theater Company. So tickets are on sale. Go get them at michaeljamin.com/live. It's a small, intimate venue. I'm going to be performing from my collection of personal essays, and each one's going to be followed by like a 20-minute Q&A. We get to talk about the work. It's a fun event, so I hope to see you there. Go get them. Tickets, again, are at michaeljamin.com/live. And, of course, sign up to my weekly newsletter. That's called The Watch List at michaeljamin.com/watchlist.
This has been an episode of Screenwriters Need to Hear This with Michael Jamin and Phil Hudson. If you'd like to support this podcast, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing this podcast with someone who needs to hear today's subject. For free daily screenwriting tips, follow Michael on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Michael Jamin Writer. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Phil A. Hudson. This episode was produced by Phil Hudson and edited by Dallas Crane. Until next time, keep writing.